I've been selling on Whatnot for, I don't know, maybe like, feels like about 2 months. I don't know if that's right. I've done a handful of auctions. I've made quite a bit of money off of Whatnot. Here are my recommendations, assuming that you've been approved or are working towards approval or going to get approved at some point, and also assuming that you don't have a big social media following. I understand that I'm in a different circumstance than you might be as a new reseller on Whatnot, on the platform. If you are not yourself a YouTuber or an Instagrammer or a TikToker or whatever, if you don't come into the app with your audience already established. Here are my recommendations. Here's what I have found to work and not work on the app. And I'm still a newbie, I am still learning, I'm still refining. Just my tips. Number one is sell stuff that has some amount of quality that can fetch some amount of profit above and beyond like $1 to $3. If you have an unlimited supply of stuff that you can source for free or like a quarter or less, and you don't have a big following, I think you can probably get away with the dollar starts, meaning you start the auctions at $1. And let's say you have like 30 people in your chat, some of that stuff is gonna flip for $1. When you look at the pricing, the like fee structure on Whatnot, if you sell something for $1, you're left with very, very little profit. So it is incumbent upon you to try to push up and over that threshold. An easy workaround there is just don't start stuff at $1. $3, I think, is a reasonable ask. You should probably be attempting to sell stuff that's worth $3 or more anyway. And I get away with the $1 starts because I have a relatively healthy audience. I did a book auction today that lasted about 5 hours. There were around 50 to 60 people. And a bunch of the stuff that I listed for $1 sold for $1, between $1 and $3. And it is stuff that I probably sourced for cheap, but I priced it that way just because I want to move it out from being inside of my apartment where I need to live and I am running out of space. So I just wanted to get it out the door. So I was happy to just basically send it to people at very, very marginal, potentially no profit to myself. Just wanted it out the door, wanted it to go to a good home. And I didn't end up grossing all that much compared to the amount of time that I invested in that particular auction. The thing lasted like 5 hours. It was a lot of fun. People had a good time. I had a good time. But when you factor in all the sourcing that I had to do for it over a period of like a month, going to a bunch of library sales, sourcing for myself really, but also accumulating stuff and processing it, putting it into Whatnot, if I were to calculate out an hourly wage, it probably wouldn't be terrible, but it wouldn't be all that great. So you want to bump up your margins on Whatnot just a little bit. So Whatnot, you will not realize probably maximum market value for the stuff that you sell. And this is one of the things that people hold up as a criticism of the app. I encourage you not to see it that way. I encourage you to see it as the win-win that it really is. Because when people are consistently getting stuff for slightly under market value, that is what creates return buying and creates enthusiasm around the app itself and around you as a seller on the app if you're willing to give people a legitimately good deal. Whatnot, and I got this note a bunch from people, has a bad rap of overinflating the value of things just based on your cachet as you, or as me rather, as the influencer. People are willing to pay up for stuff because they're fond of me, and that's where the actual arbitrage value comes in. It's not in the inherent value of the thing that's being sold, it's in the prestige that I carry over to it as a guy, as thrift life. That's probably true. I think it was true for the first auction, maybe first couple auctions. That wears off, and at this point I am realizing healthy returns only on the things really that deserve healthy returns, or the stuff that I'm able to point out being of value. And I'll talk about that in a little bit. But like the halo effect wears off, and at this point I'm pretty much just a guy who is lucky enough to have a big viewership, who is selling stuff on the strength of the stuff itself. And that's a fine position to be in, because when you can give good stuff to people at a price that they could not potentially get elsewhere, or would not have bothered to get elsewhere, and they feel like they got a good deal and they got disproportionate value to the money that they put into it because they actually did, that is what will propel you to return buyership and will build you a good reputation on the app. I think if you're coming into this as somebody who, let's say you can get like 10 people on a stream at this point, all through organic traffic. Let's say you have no name recognition at all. You have a couple auctions. Maybe it's a little slow. You don't sell everything that you intended to sell, but you're able to give people a good experience, and people get the taste of savings in their mouth when they watch you. I think over the long haul, I don't see a way, I don't think that it's plausible that you couldn't build up to the point where you're getting like 50 odd people in your streams just based off of your work on the app natively. You want to aim, I think, for like 30 plus. Around 50, which is where I was at today with the book auction, you stand a good chance of selling the vast majority of the things that you are listing as long as they are priced properly. I have a lot of people that watch the channel. Am I qualified to give this note? I think so, because I've watched so many other people's whatnot streams, and I've been on the app for a while now, and I've seen people make mistake upon mistake upon mistake upon mistake. I've been on streams where people don't do those things and they run them professionally, and even if they have only like 9 to 15 people in the chat, they're still able to flip a bunch of stuff really quickly. And yes, they're not getting as much money for that stuff as I might be able to get on the app if I had 100 people in stream, but you have to see it as the value add for you as a reseller, whatever it is you happen to be working with, whatever viewer base you happen to be working with. What are the things to avoid? I think, and again, I realize I'm speaking as someone who's only been on the app for like a month. Big mistakes that I see people consistently making, or I will say just the stuff that turns me off as a buyer, because I buy on the app as well. I source there, especially in the, like right after I got approved, I was looking at my phone all the time. I was watching people's streams all the time. The people that I would not watch are the people who have just tons, heaps, unbelievable amounts of dead air on their stream, to the point where it's almost comical. It's outrageous the amount of time that is dedicated to nothing. You log on to people's streams and it's just a shot of a wall, and there's like a little Funko Pop in the corner, and you're sitting there waiting for something to happen, and there's some tinny music playing in the background, and nothing happens, and you're sitting there for like 5 minutes. This is not like everybody. This is a minority of people where it's this bad, but this phenomenon, this flavor taints tons of streams where maybe you sell a couple things and then you take a long break, or you talk, you engage with the chat, you just talk about nothing. If you come to Whatnot with a level of just basic understanding of the dynamic at play, your relationship to your buyer base, and a basic level of respect for their time, and awareness of how much competition you have just on the app itself, much less YouTube, Amazon Prime, internet porn, whatever other thing it is that is competing for their attention at the time, the level of audacity that it takes to say, people are gonna stick around to watch me smoke this weed for 10 minutes when they have all these other options is, let's just call it avoidable. The follow-on from that, the light version of that, is you're selling stuff, but you're selling one thing. You are asking your chat to go into your store and look at your inventory and request items for you to put up. And waiting and waiting and waiting, and someone will say, yeah, show me that XL Chucky shirt, please. Run that. And say, okay. And then pull it out, run it. Runs for like a minute, sells for whatever, and then back to sitting around. The amount of time that you spent waiting for somebody to request an item from you, you could have sold 1, 2, 3 items. If you just show stuff to people, even if you have little thumbnail photos in your listings that you've preloaded, if you just show the thing to the people without them having to request it and ask for it, you may be able to generate some interest, and you'll be able to move much more quickly through your inventory and figure out in the short and long term what it is that people want to buy from you. And if you have a dud item that nobody's going to want, then you're going to find out more quickly that it's a dud item than sitting around and at the end of the stream, when you've been on stream for 2 hours and you've only managed to run 30 items because you're doing this sit around act, you could have put everything up for sale, sold twice as much stuff, and figured out what was not worth selling. I've also noticed that people really like quick auctions. I've had a couple of people say or suggest, like maybe run it for a little bit longer, run it for 30, 45 seconds, you might be able to get a little bit more money out of it. Maybe I would, but I think it would hurt the health of the auction as a whole doing that, because people like the quick pace of, I do 20-second auctions, and I don't do instant death, which is where it's just a set 20 seconds. At the end of the 20 seconds, highest bidder wins. I do the thing where it bumps it up another 10 seconds if they bid in the last 10 seconds of that 20-second set. It's not to create false scarcity or to create pressure, although I think that does happen. That's not why I do the 20-second auctions. It's to find out really quickly, to get to the bottom of it. Give people the opportunity to bid on it, and if it is something that is really compelling to people, that people really want, they will keep bidding. There will be a bidding war, and it'll potentially go on for 45, 60 seconds because people keep bidding each other up. That's happened a few times. That's just my strategy. I don't think that that's gospel, but that is what I've found works for me, and what I have heard from people is a good approach. People find that to be a breath of fresh air. People really like the quick pace. People don't like sitting around, people don't like dithering, people don't like having their time unnecessarily stretched out and kind of taken advantage of in these little small ways. The other big tip that I have is I am finding that it is, I think, better to aim for middle of the road value, not the really cheap stuff that's going to flip for $1 to $3, which at the end of these auctions I don't think is really worth the amount of time that it still does take to source it, input it into whatnot, and then ship it. And that whole process is on a shorter timeline than if you were selling it on eBay, but it is still a commitment of time. And I think that it does behoove you to sell stuff, let's say above $5. I think the sweet spot is around 10 to 20 sold price plus the shipping that they pay on top. I think that's really where you want to be aiming, because believe it or not, people like spending money on stuff that is of quality. So they will buy it if they know that it is quality, or if you can tell them that it is of high quality. When you can have some kind of an added narrative value to the item, like when you can tell people why it is worth picking up, people are willing to spend more money on it. So the example here is I sold tons of books that I don't recognize, I've never read, I know nothing about them, I can't attest to their reputation at all. I just thought maybe someone will want this, I'll show the condition, I'll put it up, and those are the books that flipped for the lower money. The books that I have read that I liked, I was able to describe and be enthusiastic about and point out the value in these books to people, and those sold for more money than I anticipated. For example, I don't want to go and find it, but I had a mass market of a book called A Deepness in the Sky by Werner Vinge. It's one of my favorite science fiction books. Someone bought it for $9 because I was talking it up, and not in like a salesman-y way. I was just like, I love this book. This is roughly my 4th or 5th favorite science fiction book. You might like it if you like this or that. It's part of this series. I was invested clearly in the book, and through that investment, people were more enthusiastic to buy it. I would caution you not to use this as a conscious manipulation tactic, not talking up items that don't deserve to be talked up, and not generating fictitious pseudo value where there isn't actual value. But if you know something about an item that they don't, if you can point that out to them, it will improve the value of the item. I have bought a few things on Whatnot. I've noticed that a lot of people do not screen their items, or they screen it not well enough, or they screen it and they send it anyway and they don't disclose the flaws in the stream. My system has been to put little pieces of masking tape during a screening period of the stuff, and then I will just like put in has flaws in the listings, and then I will describe the flaws live when I'm showing the item. I've heard from, I'm not just like chastising people from the seat of my pants. I've heard many, many, many times people recapitulate this argument or criticism which is that they've been burned by a bunch of resellers on Whatnot who just don't care enough to look at the stuff and disclose the flaws, be honest about the flaws, or care about them in the first place. So that will set you apart too. You also will definitely benefit from just having like a clean stream visually, of not doing it in a really cluttered, weird area, putting your phone on a tripod. If you have a laptop or a tablet that you can run the actual auctions off of, do it that way instead of having your hand up in the phone doing it. Just like a little veneer of professionalism, and I'm not that far above that basic veneer of professionalism myself. I'm still kind of wanting to maybe build out a little bit more set dressing. I have a basic lighting setup that itself kind of has problems, these two ring lights. There is a basic amount of effort put into it. There's not like a cat or a dog running around on the merchandise. I'm not holding stuff up with a lit cigarette in my fingers, which happened on a stream where I had already purchased like 5 items from the guy, and he just held something up and he had like a lit, I don't know if it was a joint or if it was nicotine, but just, yeah, hey, do you want this one? He's got to give people a space where they're like comfortable living for the 2 hours that your stream lasts. Another important note there, I would limit the amount of items that you have to around like between, I would say like 120, 130 at the tops is around the sweet spot if you're doing the quick fire, rapid fire 20-second auctions and you are efficient, you have a system, you have it set up so that you can just keep showing stuff one after the other, like one thing after the other. If you can get through that quickly, 120, 130 items is about 2.5 hours. And that is people's comfort level. And this is true when you look at Hollywood, like the 2-hour threshold is about where people really check out. Also, I think that it is smart to maybe buy one of these. This is, I'm not gonna like put an affiliate link for this. This is a little plug-in microphone that just plugs into the bottom of your phone. It's the Video Mic Me. Costs 40 bucks on Amazon. Be willing to just make this tiny investment, make your audio sound okay. It's not gonna sound, you know, professionally designed, but it's not gonna be all tinny and blown out like it will be on your built-in phone mic probably, unless you have some space age 2023 phone. That seems to be the case always. It gets really dirty and muddy when you use the built-in mic, and that might be the case with this, but I've not had any complaints. People say that the audio quality is pretty good. When you have music playing in the background and when you're talking and stuff's going on, it just kind of sounds bad. I think if you can do these things, if you can give people a good experience, if you are moving quickly, if you're giving people value, if you're giving people deals on good stuff, if you do this consistently on Whatnot, even starting from zero, I don't see why you wouldn't end up in a fairly comfortable position where Whatnot becomes a great asset to your reselling business. And of course, there are contingencies in reselling still where I would prefer to list certain things on eBay and Poshmark or elsewhere. But the middle of the road, the big bulk stuff, like being able to just move a ton of inventory, like nothing beats Whatnot for me, at least. Like just nothing compares. And this is not to throw eBay and Poshmark and these other apps and platforms under the bus. You can absolutely still make money doing them, but if you're turning your nose up at Whatnot and wanting people to pat you on the back for doing it because you're not about the social media crap or whatever rationale it is, I think it is so completely worth the investment of time, whatever amount of time it would take to build up a bit of a reputation and a bit of an audience on that app. And of course, going through the approval process, which is irritating to people, putting a little bit of skin in the game and trying a little bit. I'm telling you, it is such a great asset to have. And I think you do yourself a disservice if it's something that you could potentially see value in down the line of working to build something up over a few months, as you did with eBay, as you did with Poshmark, as you have to do everywhere. I think it would be a shame if you just dismissed it out of hand as a fad. If the people who are licking their chops and sharpening their knives and hoping and waiting and praying for Whatnot to go away and insisting that it is a fad, if those people are right, something like Whatnot is going to be a part of reselling. I don't see why it wouldn't be, especially because eBay is doing live auctions now. So I think it's a good skill set to bone up on and start doing it and get a little bit of dirt under your fingernails with it. I'm not evangelizing to you. If you just want to do eBay forever, perfectly fine. I'm just telling you from my experience what has worked for me on the app, and pretty much everything works on the app past a certain point. Like if you can keep your cost of goods really, really low, even if you're selling stuff for low margins, you're still making money. I hope that helps, and I hope those among you who are selling on Whatnot are doing something along the lines of what I'm suggesting and that you're finding success with it, because I'm sure you are. Appreciate it.